Magic the Gathering.
Magic, 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 I'm so magic.
Gathering magic.
Spend a lot of money on...
Anyone else added to the roster?
There's Vega, but I've never met a Vega player in real life.
Okay.
I don't know a single person who like loves Vega. I don't know
She's
anybody.
just not popular.
It's a dude, and he's he's got like a mask, and he's got a little claw hand, and he just jumps around the screen. Nobody likes him. I don't know a single. He's like a little femboy too. He's like a
Well, that's probably why people love him. For being honest, for being fully,
Yeah, he's got a little spider tat or a
he's got
snake
he's got this
tattoo.
mask. He looks like
He's got a mask.
He's got like Ichigo vibes.
Yeah, and he can like in past games he could like take off and on the like little claw hands.
What is this character
Dude,
design?
yeah, I don't know, dude.
Yeah,
But he's
pretty
got a
funny.
good theme though. I'll tell you that.
I kind of like him.
Well, when he comes out as DLC and nobody plays him except for you, you can.
Yeah, I'll be a Vega main in Street Fighter 6.
Oh, also Vega in some stages can like jump on the wall and like climb around on the walls. Like he's just like a weird dude. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'll stick to my characters. I'm good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good on Vega. We don't need Vega.
Yeah,
It
we
turns
don't
out.
need that.
All right.
Well,
Well,
anyways,
should we jump into
yeah,
Magic the Gathering?
more
talk, I
important
guess?
topics.
But yeah, welcome to Wild Dogs Podcast, a show inspired mostly by our love for the game known as Magic the Gathering. I'm your host, Leland, and with me here today is our other co-host, Luke.
Hello, everyone.
And yeah, thanks for stopping by and listening to us ramble about Magic. Housekeeping. Wild Dogs updates on the boys. Nothing too crazy, but we both have new decks in the works, new decks in paper, new decks on the way, new proxies on the way. There's a lot going on, specifically for Commander. We've got a lot of new Commander bubblings going on here.
Yes.
Some might say. And one of which was debuted at last night's Commander session. Let's
Oh yeah.
can you tell us about that a little bit, Luke?
Guys, a couple episodes ago, Leland introduced me to Zabaz, the boy himself, the bee that we all know and love. And I finally put it in paper, and I played it last night for the first time. Absolute smashing success. It was so much fun, and it is now definitely my favorite deck I own. So, yeah, leave it to Leland to come up with a broken, crazy... Also, I think it's crazy powerful, too. Like,
It seems like
it feels broken to me.
it seems very good. It seems very good from what we saw in the. I think you played it one game, right? And then
Yeah, I
you
played one
played
game.
Karlov
The other one.
the next game. But yeah, I'm eager to see it come back and see some more games with it to see how it really kind of comes together. You know.
Yeah, and like last night, the whole time I was playing Karlov, I was like, "Damn, I wish I was playing Zabaz." Because sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I'll mix it up. I'll play a different deck." It's like second game, big mistake. I should have just stuck with Zabaz.
Yeah. I wish I would have brought over a couple more decks because we had a couple other people join us. So I lent out. I got the Marath Will of the Wilds precon for my birthday, so I was excited to play that. But I lent that out. Let's be honest, the list itself not very good. We're
Nope.
talking about a precon from 2013, and you compare that to the precons of today, and
Yeah,
it's like night and day.
it's kind of embarrassing actually.
But our buddy Zach, who we met last night, he actually had some pretty big plays. Like the cool thing about Marath, I think, is in the long games, it can kind of stand the test of time because it has a lot of like high mana, big beast creatures and like big angels, just a bunch of like, you're basically just throwing down a bunch of big creature spells in the late game. And there's some interesting tech with the +1/+1 counters and stuff, but for the most part, you're just kind of playing the waiting game, and you're kind of just playing like, okay, yeah, I cast a 5 mana angel 4/4 flyer, and it's like,
yeah,
that's about it for that precon.
yup.
So I brought that. Didn't get to play it. Got to watch it.
I felt kind of bad like turn 3 having like 3 artifact creatures that all had like 3+1/+1s on them. Yeah, I felt a little bad. And then watching him just like wait for like, nope, I pass, play a land and pass.
Yeah. Well, and we were also, it was a 5-player pod, which It has been fine for our play group, honestly.
Yeah, it's fine.
We do it about 50% of the time, honestly. It's like half the time we got 5 people, half the time we got 4 people, and obviously it adds to the game. I think game 1 went 3 hours long last night.
Yep.
Which is insane.
Yeah. We polished off multiple bottles of liquor.
We did. We had Luke had a lot of nice Belgian beers, which was awesome. We had some whiskey going, it was a good time. But yeah, by the end of it, we were all like, wow. I kind of wish I had brought my combo deck just to like get the thing done at that point.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, it was long.
Yeah, I was playing, I brought Astor, Bear of Blades. He's my equipment and vehicle deck. So there's not like, there are some kind of win cons in that deck, but for the most part, you're just trying to get the most value out of Astor's triggered ability, bringing out a bunch of like cool equipment and vehicles and building, kind of going wide or going tall. It's fun in that regard because it's not a true Voltron deck. Obviously, there were multiple points in that game last night where I slapped 3 or 4 equipments onto Brimaz or Astor and did some serious damage. But there's also the vehicles going on. There's also, you're trying to create a bunch of tokens to crew vehicles, or you can equip your tokens with cool equipment. So that's one thing I like about Astor is it's kind of mid-rangey. It's kind of, you just grind the game out a little bit. You're not building towards one win con in specific, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
What funky equipments do I have on board right now? What can I do with those?
Yeah.
So it makes the gameplay with that deck a little bit more dynamic, which is fun.
No, it was fun to play against too. Also, we had somebody playing one of the new precons from Fallout, and we got introduced to the whole rad counter idea. I don't know. It was fun, but also no one understood it.
Yeah.
And every time it was somebody's turn, we had to re-explain how it works.
I think it's one of those things where in a fast game, kind of like we were just talking about how the game last night went 3 hours. In a quick game, if you can introduce rad counters and everyone's on board and like, because it's a really interesting
it's a cool mechanic.
I think it's really, really cool.
And it's kind of funny.
It was really, really fun for the first hour.
Yeah.
The second hour, it was like, okay, these things are here. They're milling us out, what have you. The third hour, for whatever reason, maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was just us being tired and exhausted from this 3-hour game of Commander. We were all missing those triggers. We all we were all just completely off board with the whole rad counters thing. But it was fun. I really enjoyed them. But yeah, in the late game, when everyone's kind of slogging through and we're all just like, let's go to game 2.
Yeah.
Rad counters were just, and even Taylor, the pilot of the deck, it was funny. He's like, this deck's awesome at the beginning of the game. He's like, this is super fun. By the end of it, he was like, no one's missing. Like, he felt like he had to like, to look ahead to the main topic of today's episode, Judge's Tower. Before the game of Commander, we were playing Judge's Tower. So we're all kind of, at least, Taylor and I, who love Judge's Tower. Spoiler alert, Luke isn't maybe the biggest fan of Judge's Tower.
Yeah, I hate it.
But
we'll get to that.
We were still in the mindset of like paying attention to all these triggers, and yeah, Taylor by the end of the game having to like kind of stay on top of everyone paying attention to the rad counters.
Yeah.
It's fun when everyone picks up on it and is like playing with the rad counters, but by the end of a 3-hour Commander game, when everyone's just untap, upkeep, draw, main phase, you're like, well, hold on a second. After your draw step, in your pre-combat main phase, or however it's phrased, you need to take this action. And everyone's kind of like rolling their eyes. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll mill these cards. I'll lose this life. Because none of us were playing Graveyards Matter decks.
No.
So if Taylor's the only one, if you're the only one piloting, and it was I forget which one it is. It's like the Master, I think, is one of the characters, and then the Owl. The Owl, not the Owl.
Oh, it was Mothman.
The Mothman. Yeah, the Mothman deck. If you're the only one who plays a Graveyards Matter deck, like that's awesome for you, because when people are milling their stuff, they're not going to take it back, and you get to play it with the Master, I think. But if no one else cares about their graveyards and they're just trying to move forward with their gameplay, they're not going to pay attention to the rad counters by the end of a game. Is basically our bottom line here. Long story short, Rad counters are fun in the early game. By the end of the game, if no one else cares about their graveyards, it's just another thing we have to worry about.
Yeah,
So
pretty much. Also, yeah, it seemed a little convoluted. Like, it makes sense, but like they could have just been like, at your upkeep, do the thing. But like,
Mhm.
and it's also like the rad counter goes away if you don't pull a land. You know, or was it the other way? Or is it if you pull a land then it goes away? Like, I don't even remember. I just
That's the
remember
thing.
it's got
So
something to do with lands.
yeah, so you basically during your pre-combat main phase, after you draw your card for turn, the rad counter triggers. If you have, let's say, 3 rad counters, you mill 3 cards. For each non-land card you mill, you lose 1 life and remove a rad counter. So essentially, from Taylor's perspective, he wants you to always retain a rad counter at all times. So there's a lot of proliferate stuff in the deck. But like, let's say in that case you hit all 3 rad counters. Unless Taylor can put more rad counters onto me, I obviously don't get the rad counter trigger. And like his whole goal is to have people mill stuff on during their turns on every single turn. So you will kind of want people to, and it happened to me the whole game. I always had like, because I was attacking Taylor and like we had this whole thing where it's like, yeah, I'll, whatever, I don't care, I'll just mill my whole deck, whatever. And I ended up basically doing that with Astor.
Nice.
By the end of the game, like 70 to 80% of my deck was in my graveyard.
Gotta love it.
Granted, that was like post. And that was the other thing is we had like 3 board wipes. I did a World Slayer with
Yeah,
Astor and literally destroyed all lands, all non-land permanents, and set us to turn 1 again halfway through the game. So that's kind of on me. It's part on me. Why our game lasted 3 hours, but
Yeah, but no, we got to experience that new 2024 Magic.
yeah, that new good
The
from
new
Fallout.
good from Fallout.
Can you believe that? Just the Fallout
hurts.
Magic the Gathering precons.
It
That's
hurts.
what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, we experienced it in our own lives, not just on the internet with people talking about it. It's like, no, we actually played against it, and it was kind of convoluted and okay.
Yeah. I will say, though, I've always been okay with Universes Beyond, but if they're done this well, I will say, like, I'm not an enfranchised Fallout player by any means. I've only played part of Fallout 4.
Okay.
So for me, I was not excited about this set at all going into it. But having seen the deck and like how well put together it was, obviously the design team at Wizards they're gonna do their thing on these precons, and they're gonna be good. But to see just how fun they are and how well designed they are was pretty exciting. It definitely reinvigorated my appreciation for Universes Beyond and has me a little bit more excited for future Universes Beyond. Like Assassin's Creed, I was kind of on the fence about. I'm a bit more of a fan of Assassin's Creed. I've played a bit more of those games. So now, having played against a Fallout precon, I'm eager to see what they come up with for Assassin's Creed. So
Interesting.
Are you don't feel the same way?
Okay, Assassin's Creed, I'm kind of I feel okay, I don't know how much you want me to go into this, but like I feel like Ubisoft is kind of in its twilight era. I think it doesn't really know, like Ubisoft is so confusing to me as especially someone that works in that industry. It's like they are some of the biggest innovators and some of the biggest like lazy innovators of all time.
Okay.
So like for instance, like okay, what's some of the best games that they made in the last couple of years? So like Rainbow Six Siege is awesome. That's a great game. And then right after that, what do they make? They make like an uninspired battle royale that they cancel. You know, or
What was that project?
I don't remember what it was called, but it was like Neon, and I played it in the beta. I got invited to it.
Oh, they also just released that Skull and Bones.
Yeah, I heard it's awful.
I saw. I think it was like release week. Obviously, you went to YouTube, all the gaming channels, whatever. They're all about it. It died. That hype for that game died off within 2 days. I swear.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing it like exclusively Skull and Bones stuff, and I haven't heard a thing about that game since release week.
Yeah. Also, I have a buddy who he loves pirates. Like, you know how I told you guys last episode, I'm a cowboy guy. Well, he's a pirate dude.
Okay.
He has like a tattoo of
I love
pirate maps and stuff on his like
awesome.
arms and stuff.
That's
He's a big
sick.
pirate dude. And he was super excited for this game 10 years ago when they announced it.
Yeah, right. That's the other thing. And I actually, it's funny because there's an Assassin's Creed pirate game called Black Flag, and that's an incredibly fun game.
They started working on Skull and Bones after Black Flag.
They were like, this was awesome, and it was. Black Flag was a fantastic game, and so I'm sure they were like, okay, let's do just a pirate game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and I can't really speak to Skull and Bones that much because I haven't played it, but it was just interesting to see everyone be so hyped about it, and then just it fell off.
Yeah.
At least from like, media coverage. They weren't boosting. They weren't like, people weren't promoting this game post release too much. So I don't know if that's on Ubisoft's end or people just, the community for this game just fell off, but maybe it's more niche.
I'm actually really looking forward to the Jason Schreier article that comes out like a year from now, where like he like underground interviews all the people that worked on it and like gets the true story. Because like from what I've seen is that there's a lot of like it seemed like the game like changed dramatically in development multiple times. Like, hey, we're going to be an action adventure pirate game. Okay, now we're going to be a live service, like loot box, looter shooter, kind of like Sea of Thieves. Okay, it's like, okay, now we're going to be something else. Like, it seems like it changed direction drastically multiple times during development. But I don't know. I don't know. So I'm excited for that Jason Schreier article in a couple of years that explains it. But then back to Assassin's Creed. Yeah, Assassin's Creed is also the same thing, where it's like they revolutionized the genre of stealth and action adventure games, and they won a lot of awards. But then what do? They just kept making uninspired sequels, yearly sequels every year, that got worse and worse in quality over time, and now nobody cares. Because I actually heard that the Assassin's Creed, the newest one that just came out, that's in like, well, it was in like, I don't know, like Istanbul, Pakistan or something. Okay, I heard that one was actually not bad. Like, people said it was okay. Yeah,
and I actually really got into Assassin's Creed with Origins, the Egypt one, that's cool. Which I love. Yeah. I love that game.
Me too.
And then I played Odyssey, which is the ancient Greece one, which was pretty good. Again, that's the thing though, is they kind of transitioned more so into the like open world RPG style game rather than like the traditional Assassin's Creed. And I guess the latest one is more, they try to go back to the roots a little bit more. So it's a much smaller game than Odyssey, Valhalla. And I think that might be part of it, right? Is that we had Origins, felt not revolutionary, but it was a huge change for Assassin's Creed. Yeah. And it was a welcome change. And it was really, I enjoyed it. I played that game to like full playthrough, did everything in it, had a blast the entire time. Go into Odyssey. It's the exact same gameplay loop at the exact same scale, if not bigger. So it's just, and then Valhalla, exact same gameplay loop on an even greater scale. So it just the world kept getting bigger, and what you could do in those games didn't change.
Yeah.
So yeah, people got burnt out on the franchise. Like I entered Valhalla, played it for like maybe a week and dropped it because I was like, I've been here, done that. Yeah. This is a cool new world to explore, and I love that, but I'm doing the same stuff I've done for the past two titles, and why keep going on? So I'm excited by how they kind of returned to their roots, I think, a little bit with the latest title.
Yeah.
But maybe it fell short in scale, or I know it was super buggy, at least when it first came out. I was seeing tons of glitchy stuff going on, so maybe that had to do with it a little bit. I'll probably play it. I want to go check it out and see what makes it a little bit different, what makes it feel more like the OG assassin-based game.
Yeah.
Because by Valhalla, you're not an assassin. You're just a Viking.
Yeah, you're just a Viking, dude.
You're not an assassin.
You just want to make a Viking RPG at that point.
Yeah. So,
but what a cool concept though, where it's like, hey, we have people from like off the street. We're gonna put them in a box. They're gonna go back in time and play as their like assassin ancestors. You know what I mean? Like, what a cool concept. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, years and years later, one every year, Call of Duty game cycle, it's like nobody cares anymore. So back to Magic. Now we're getting that Magic. We're getting this franchise that pretty much everybody's kind of burnt out on. We've been having this slapped in our face and, for, the last decade, and they haven't really put out, I'd say Odyssey was probably the last like big release people were excited about. Mm-hmm. And so, now it's coming to Magic. It's coming to a different property. People can kind of theorize there's probably going to be some ninjutsu BS. We're probably going to get an artifact that's like a hidden blade There's probably going to be some artifact that's like, the hidden blade is going to be like, oh, take 2 damage because you have to cut off your finger to wear it. Like they'll be like, take 5 damage, but then you get, unblockable +1/+1.
You
Like,
get
I don't know.
assassin counters.
Yeah, you get assassin counters. I don't know. There's gonna be something.
It'd be like the rad counters of Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I don't know. All I'm saying is I want to build a Bayek of Siwa commander. That's all I'm asking for. Just give me Bayek,
okay,
and we'll call it a day. Okay.
I want a Cassandra deck.
Cassandra would be sweet too.
Okay, I will say though, Odyssey was kind of fun because I speak a little Greek, and so it's kind of fun to walk around the town and like hear people speak in Greek, and I'm like, okay, these people are like, there's a couple here arguing about how the chicken was dry, like at dinner, like it's kind of fun.
That's
to
cool.
Like,
That's
like
really
they
cool.
actually did their homework, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what I loved about Origins too. Origins and Odyssey, I think. Maybe I should go back and check out Valhalla a little bit because I'm sure they did justice to that era and that setting as well. But I also love ancient Greece, and it was fun to just. That's the thing is like you get to go back to ancient Egypt and just see the Library of Alexandria, and the pyramids and like all this stuff, and go into like the Pharaoh's tomb and go into this like mythological, the afterlife and like fight these Egyptian gods, and it's like that's cool, and that was exciting in Odyssey as well, and so I don't know. I hope that the Magic set reflects some of these like kind of really fun, flavorful things, and the thing that's promising is, I know they've shown Cleopatra, they've shown. I think it was Leonardo da Vinci as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and those cards are pretty interesting. The mechanics are pretty interesting.
Do you still have like Ben Franklin in like a French whorehouse? Like,
yeah,
that's what it was in the game. Like,
I hope so. Honestly, I hope they go through each
like assassinating the Pope is like a saga. Like,
the assassination of the Pope would be a fantastic saga. That's a great call out, Luke.
Maybe I'm kind of excited for the set now.
See, that's what I'm saying is like I'm
cool.
thinking back like historically on the series, and I think they'll do it justice for like the diehard fans who've been playing since day one, and I hope they go back to like Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and 3, the like OG core.
Yeah.
Block. You could call that the block. The core Assassin's Creed block. 1, 2, and 3, and do that justice. And
if Ezio is not a legendary creature, I'll be upset.
He 100% is.
Okay.
I would guarantee he might have even been revealed at this point.
Why should it be like the British one only? The one that nobody played.
Right. Oh man, that'd be hilarious.
The British game is the only one that's showcased.
But yeah, basically, long story short, Assassin's Creed. If there isn't Bayek of Siwa, I'm not buying it.
Damn.
If there is Bayek of Siwa, I might buy a couple packs. Definitely buy a Bayek, and we'll take it from there. But that's my bottom line on the Assassin's Creed Universes Beyond set.
No, that's fair. I get it.
So yeah, anyways, back to just general updates. I guess that kind of wraps our updates for Wizards, I guess. And we actually wanted to maybe talk about that last episode. We got on this whole side tangent about CEDH. We didn't really touch on, Modern Horizons 3, Bloomburrow, Assassin's Creed. I think we'll revisit obviously Modern Horizons 3. I think that comes out in June. Then we have Bloomburrow, I think later in the summer. So we'll get to those sets. Obviously, as previews come out, we'll talk about the previews. But I'm glad we got to at least chat a little bit about Assassin's Creed. We addressed Thunder Junction in the last episode. There hasn't been a ton of new info. I know there's been a couple spoilers here and there, nothing too crazy. And then just some like lore episodes
they'll just like have articles that are just like short stories almost.
Yeah, the short stories. So yeah, nothing too crazy on the Wizards front. So that kind of covers the news from the source, the WotC source. Luke talked about Zabaz. The other thing is last night I played Yorvo. I played Luke's Yorvo deck for the first time. And
Did
I didn't
like it.
It was fun. I had a good time.
Fun?
I think the thing I like about green is because no matter what you do, like no matter what happens, by the end of the game, you can say that you've amassed the most lands. Like, it feels like you're playing Catan a little bit. Like you're just trying to build your your little empire of land in front of you. And it was funny because I think I cast Kadama of the West Tree, which is the most messed up magic card of all time, and like straight up built for Yorvo because you're putting +1/+1 counters on stuff. So, and this was post or this was game 2, but I got Kodama out really early. I think by the end of the game, I had like 16, 17 forests in play. Ended up getting taken out pretty early, but
Yeah, they saw you as a threat and they removed you. That's what happens when you play Yorvo.
I took, I should have just not attacked Taylor, but we made a deal. You Karloved his commander off the board, and I swung out, killed Taylor, and then I think I got killed next turn. But yeah, no, Mono Green feels good because you're just like, oh, I get more land.
You're just playing the game.
I get bigger creatures. It's like such a like Mono Green always is just like literally ramping up.
Mm-hmm.
Your creatures are getting bigger. Like there's like a the bell curve or whatever. You're just always going up with your creatures. You're always going up with the amount of lands you have. I think I played the classic. I did like a turn 2 Rampant Growth, turn 3 Kodama, turn 4 Sky Shroud Claim, and soon like within 3 or 4 turns, I had like 12 lands. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
like, this is cool. And then I could play like 2 crazy big spells by turn 5. It's like, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So to honor Luke, to honor his heritage of mono green, I am building a mono green commander deck.
I'm so excited.
I'm not sure if Luke's gonna like this. I think at its core,
are there big creatures in it?
So there are a couple big creatures. There aren't a ton of green creatures, but I think you're gonna like this because it is creature focused. You're not gonna like this because I put in some unnecessary combos.
Why?
Just to
wait. Why did you do that?
Just to feel a little bit of something.
No. That's not mono green though. You can't. I put in a couple combos. What the fuck does that mean? No, this is playing big creatures. This is putting down a bunch of land. Okay, wait. Who do we have here?
Okay, so I've got, and I think I'm gonna build this in paper. We'll see.
It's a Universes Beyond, dude. This isn't real. This isn't green.
Hey, come on. Just give him a chance.
All right, okay.
Give him a chance.
I'll chill out.
So my mono green commander is Radagast the Brown. So for 2 green, you get a 2/5.
That's way too much text to be green.
Legendary Avatar Wizard, and I knew that you'd pick up on that. I knew immediately you'd be like,
why would you do that?
There's a paragraph on this card. I cannot read this.
It's a book. You got to read a novel to understand how this guy works.
Which feels anti-green to its core. So maybe that's why I picked Radagast, because I was like, oh, it does stuff. It does stuff. It's not a green commander. I can play this card.
Oh my god. All right, sorry. Keep going.
But yeah, Radagast is a 2/5 Avatar Wizard. Whenever Radagast the Brown or another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the creature's mana value. You may reveal a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with the creature you control from among those cards and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So essentially, the whole goal with this deck, at its core, if you take it at face value, if you take Radagast at face value, you're just going to play a ton of different creatures and not have any of them share a type, which is fun to build around, right? Because when you're building this deck, you just want to look and be like, okay, I've got 1 worm, I've got 1 troll, 1 squirrel, 1 scout, 1 scarecrow, which that's part of the thing you're probably not going to like about this is the scarecrow I added to this deck. We've got 1 elf, 1 horse, 1 halfling, 1 god, 1 centaur. It's like every single creature has to have a completely different creature type.
It's like Volo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's Volo vibes. You don't have to take it to that extent, right? Like you can play Llanowar Elves and just for like ramp and like there's certain like I guess utility creatures that you might want to include. Like I have a Birds of Paradise in here. Let's say there's another big interesting bird. I'd still probably play, like you can still get away with playing this because you're not always going to hit your other bird in the deck, right?
Yeah, and Birds of Paradise goes well in every green deck.
Right. Same thing with like Llanowar Elves, right? Like you can play that, and then I forget what my other elf even is. I should probably hold on. Let me pull this by subtypes, so you can see. And it's hilarious. Opening this in subtypes is like, look at all the categories because it's like everything is a different creature. Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, which is a thing that ramps into bigger creatures essentially.
Also, I saw that Grothma in there.
Grothma, oh yeah, the worm.
Yeah,
which is
interesting.
I think you're working on a worm tribal deck, which is so
am.
funny. I love that you're like you texted me and you're like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm building a tribal deck, and I was like, oh, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna do angels? Is he gonna do, is he going to do a zombie deck like me? Is he going to do goblins? Is he going to do humans? Is he going to do human tribal deck? Like, I was thinking like, the top 10.
No.
He's like, I'm building a worm deck.
Yeah, we are. Let's go.
I was like, oh, Luke, I love you, man. Like a worm tribal deck. I'm so excited
Yeah,
to see
get
what
ready
Grothma.
for it.
Because
Anyway.
Grothma. Yeah,
that's why I recognized it. I was like, oh, cool.
let's
That's
tell me a little bit about Grothma and I guess why you're building Grothma real quick.
Well, Grothma is great for card draw in green, actually, if you think about it. So in green, you're going to have a lot of big creatures. There's a lot of instants and sorceries where you can have creatures attack another creature. And so if you kill it, you get whatever your power of that creature is. So basically, he's basically a sack outlet to draw cards.
Interesting. So you're going to use him kind of as like a removal spell and also draw spell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, too, he also because I recently I like the idea of having a couple different legendary creatures that can all pilot the deck well. So I'd also throw him and be like, hey, it's group hug. If you kill him, you get a bunch of cards.
Yeah, but the thing about Grothma though is if you play a 5-mana 10/8 and you're like, yeah, this is group hug, people are gonna be like, no. Okay, so for those who don't know, Grothma is for 3 green a 10/8 worm. Other creatures have, whenever this creature attacks, you may have it fight Grothma all devouring, which there's kind of the removal aspect of it. And then when Grothma leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothma this turn by sources they controlled. And I guess that's definitely the group hug mechanic, is everyone draws cards. That's the drawback to having a 5-mana 10/8. But I think you can kind of, I don't know. I'm really curious to see how you build this, because it's a huge threat if you can give it haste, if you can give it trample, if you can give it, suit him up for battle.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, I like your idea of having him just like run cantrips, run all the fight cantrips and draw cards, have him fight stuff, have him remove stuff, and then on one of your turns just utilize those fighting spells to draw a ton of cards.
Yeah. Also, he is not the main commander.
He's not the main commander?
No.
It's another worm then? Who's the main worm?
The main worm is the worm man himself, Baru.
Baru?
Yeah. Yeah, there he is.
Worm speaker. Worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. He's a 3/3 human druid.
Worms.
And then for 7 green and tap, you create a 4/4 green worm token. This ability costs X less to cast, or X less to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control.
It's like when you got other worms on the board, you're basically paying 1 for a 4/4 green worm token.
Interesting. I'm assuming you're going to run stuff like, are you trying to make this pretty aggro? Like, are you trying to like swing out with these guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Interesting. So like a Concordant Crossroads.
Yep.
Stuff to untap Baru to get multiple worms a turn.
Oh no, we're not even doing that. No. We're
No?
a 1 worm a turn
Okay.
kind of guy. But no,
that's true. Like Strionic Resonator, that type of stuff is a little too
we're not doing that.
a little too not anti-green.
Yeah, it's a little up
So
there.
let me tell you about some of the anti-green
Yeah,
stuff
let me
I have.
see.
In
Let me see
this.
what you got in yours.
So I mentioned I've got a Scarecrow in here, right?
Yeah, why?
It is Painter Servant. Are you familiar with the Painter Servant combo? So there's a legacy deck called Painter, and the whole combo is between Painter Servant, which is a 2-mana 1/3 Scarecrow. As it enters the battlefield, you name a color. All cards that aren't in play, including library, graveyard, everything, become that color. And what pairs really well with that is a little card called Grindstone. So for 1 mana, you get an artifact that has for 3 and tap, put the top 2 cards of target player's library into that player's graveyard. If both cards share at least 1 color, repeat this process. So the combo is hey Luke, I'm going to make your whole library blue. I'm going to tap my Grindstone. You have to mill your whole deck. So I included that combo in my mono green creature deck. How do you feel about that?
I think I hate this just as much as I hate Judge's Tower.
Oh no. No, come on, it's fun. It's fun. It's good.
It's not mono green. This deck is not mono green. Everybody, I'm looking at what's on here. Not mono green.
No, I mean, like most of the other stuff.
Hashtag not my deck. Not my mono green deck. You know.
Now, to be fair, I'm running a ton of I basically am running all like staple mono green cards, with the exception of some heavy hitters. I mean, the Painter Servant combo is hilarious, but it's also like not going to happen most of the time.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've got a couple tutors
Yeah, I
in
was
here.
just gonna say I see a couple tutors there. You could tutor for it.
Yeah, Worldly Tutor, Sylvan Tutor, but I'm not going to tutor for that unless I've got, I don't have any artifact tutors necessarily. So unless I hit Grindstone during a game, I'm probably never going to tutor for,
Yeah.
Painter.
I will
honestly,
say though, I did see a Crater Hoof in there, so that makes me happy. Okay, that's good.
yeah, I've got Crater
It's a
Roof, I've got
staple.
Finale.
Okay.
What else I got? I got a Vigor. So
Yeah,
I'm
I see
running
the
like
Silverback Elder.
I'm
Let's
playing
go.
I'm playing cards that I've always wanted to cast, but I don't play green, so I never cast them. You know what I mean? So like
Okay.
I've got a lot of the staples in here. I've got the Finale. I'm also running Last March of the Ents again because this is
Yeah, it's a great
It's a
card.
creature deck, so it's a creature deck at core. Right now, I've got 32 creatures. I'm probably going to up that to 36, 38, just because Radagast, he only cares about creatures.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. This will be kind of interesting. The only tricky part about this deck for me is like I just don't know where to like take it from here.
Yeah,
Like,
wait, how are you doing on ramp? I'm not seeing a ton of ramp.
I've got a ton.
Oh,
of
you do?
ramp in
Okay,
here.
okay.
Yeah. Got the classics like Nature's Lore.
Yeah.
We've got and I'm running fast mana in here. What that's going to change. I'm not going to spend not going to run all the fast mana, but I've got Arcane Signet, Emerald Medallion, Expedition Map, Jewel Lotus, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond. Like I've got
Yeah.
a ton of stuff in here for ramp. The old Great Henge, which is great in a creature deck. Throne of Eldraine. Like there's plenty of ramp spells in here. Plus exploration. Because that's the other thing about mono green is like there's draw. I think mono green gets a lot of flack for not having card draw, but there's plenty of card draw in mono green.
Yeah, there's no like pure like draw through. I mean, there's like one, there's harmonize, but there's a lot of ways to draw cards, but not like necessarily like for one as an instant draw a card. Like there's none of that.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I've also got the Zodiac Ox, Zodiac Rabbit, just to have like other goofy creature types for Radagast triggers.
I like it.
And just for the culture, as Luke says. But yeah, I'm building a mono green deck here, and I've also got the 3 visits. Yeah, I've got a ton of ramp. It's just all fast mana, which I'll probably change to be your more ramp and growth land based ramp, just for fun. Because it's not fun if I just like this isn't a deck for all the fast mana. This is not a competitive deck by any means. So
Are you putting this in paper?
possibly.
Potentially.
I think Radagast is interesting. He's cool. Yeah, I've also got the Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo. Get the old Merit Lodge. So yeah, there's some stuff that's inherently anti mono green or just not traditionally mono green, but we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes.
You know what? I gotta just take the scraps I'm given. You know what? I'm excited, Leland. I'm excited for you to dive into some mono green.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm excited to see what I come up with here and see if it sticks. We'll have to see if it sticks.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. This is I'll take what I can get. This is okay. We'll make it work.
We'll work. We'll see what happens. But yeah, moving on from our news, let's talk about our main topic here. Let's talk about Judge's Tower.
Judge's Tower.
We played it last night, as I mentioned before our Commander night. What did you think, Luke? What did you think of the old Judge's Tower? And we'll get to what the format
rules and
is,
stuff.
but just at face value, what did you think of your first experience playing with Judge's Tower?
At face value, I don't like it. It's not for me. It's the parts of Magic I don't like personified in a game.
Spoken like a true mono green player.
Yep.
Thank you, Luke.
What do you think?
I love it. I mean, I've spent not consistently, but I've spent like a year building this thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
At least I've spent a year theorizing this thing. Like I've enjoyed Judge's Tower for a long time now. I've watched a lot of Judge's Tower, which sounds really weird, and I've like done a lot of research about Judge's Tower, and it feels good to finally have a tower built. And my tower is 500 cards. Typically, Judge's Tower is like 150 to 250 cards. It's a casual constructed format, so it's not like a serious format. It's not a sanctioned format. And the whole point is to build a singleton tower of, 200 cards or so, of all the cards with the most crazy triggers, some really specific niche rulings, and the only way of losing the game is to miss a trigger, basically. The whole point of even playing Judge's Tower is to hyperfixate on your triggers and on the board state and making sure everyone's in check, everyone's casting spells when they should, activating abilities when you should, and hitting their triggered abilities when they should.
Yeah.
So it's just like purely it's like housekeeping personified on a Magic in a Magic game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess tell me a little bit more about like your experience and what maybe you liked and why it doesn't click with you.
Also, just to like make clear here, I don't like the game mode, but but Leland did a very good job making the deck. You know what I mean? Like making the 5, like all the cards were really cool and really fun, and like there's a couple cards that like, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this one existed. Like, oh yeah, I remember like reading about this, or I remember a game a year ago when someone played that. So like the deck itself that Leland made is really fun. But yeah, I just not a big fan of the lawyering aspect of it all.
Yeah.
Like, and as someone that plays, I'm a mono green player, like I just want to play creatures. I just want to do combat damage. Like, that's what I want. That's what I'm here to play. I'm not a spellslinger. I tried that once, wasn't for me. I'm not a big like, in the byline of the FAQ, it says you got to do X, Y, and Z or else you'll get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't like all that stuff. I just want to play creatures, and that's why I play, just for the flavor and the combat part of it. So like having all these things is like, well, actually you did that and that's a sorcery, so you have to do that during your main phase instead of your upkeep, so you lose the game. It's like I don't like all that little lawyering stuff. And like even when we play around the table, people are constantly telling me stuff like, oh, Luke, you missed a trigger there. You should have put another +1 on there because, so-and-so, gained life or whatever. And that's what that artifact does. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, okay, cool. Like, that's, so it's like, yeah. So it's like all the parts of Magic that like, I don't really like or care about like in a game. So.
And I think that's totally fair, right? Like you said, we mostly play casual Commander. We're not here to, we're not here to call a judge on you during our kitchen table Magic. But I think, missing some of those triggers, like you were saying, like, oh, you missed this trigger, like you should be getting a +1/+1 counter on this, or like typically when we point stuff out, it's not like, oh, you can't do that. So there's some of that obviously, but it's mostly like, oh, you missed this, like you get this. It's like we're typically a pretty welcoming and like helpful. We like to like
need that. I need you guys to tell me how my stuff works because I don't know how.
And I think in defense of Judge's Tower, and I think something that like we're gonna keep playing this, whether you like it or not. We're gonna keep playing this.
No, I'm expecting to have to play this forever.
Yeah,
like, this is just part of my life now. Like,
This is just part of our play group, and I think to the defense of Judge's Tower, and we'll talk about this later. I've got a whole section on this later. I think it helps you learn the game. Like the whole point is like, yes, it's to, see who misses a trigger and like isn't in touch with like certain rulings, and like you want to obviously win Judge's Tower, but that's not the point. The point is like learning about some of these cards and like enhancing your knowledge of just like the core mechanics of the game, like playing through your upkeep. There's things you can do in your upkeep. There's stuff that happens during your draw step. There are things that happen immediately after your draw step, and when you go to combat, there are triggers going to combat. Like it's a good way of like touching base with your core understanding of the mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
In a way where that if you continue to play Judge's Tower, you're gonna like see things and then apply that to your casual game of Commander and be like, oh yeah, I have this on board. I need to hit these triggers. Like it's a good way of just like reflecting on parts of the game that maybe you just breeze right past, and then you miss triggers, and then you're like a pass turn, and then you look at your board and you're like, oh, actually I had this in my upkeep. It's like, well, you played through an entire turn. Like the whole point of hitting your turn is to be productive in that turn. And I think you're like selling yourself short a little bit if you're just like untap, play land, green creature, go. It's like, well, let's like you have enchantments, you have artifacts, and those benefit those big green creatures. You know what I mean? And like there are sorceries with flashback that like, oh yeah, during I forgot I had a Faithless Looting, and I've got the mana open for it that I don't have at instant speed for this turn cycle. So you just miss out on like a flashback trigger. And that's not to say that you don't need to play those spells. Like if they don't resonate with you and you don't like having to worry about your graveyard, you don't like having to worry about stuff during your upkeep, you don't like having like combat triggers because that adds a whole other thing, like don't play those cards. By all means, don't play those cards. I just think Judge's Tower is an asset to bettering yourself at Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
No, it's definitely like the eat your vegetables game.
Yeah,
mode,
exactly.
You know, like every once in a while as a Magic player, you gotta eat your vegetables. You gotta practice kind of like, you know, the core fundamentals of the game. And that's why I hate it, because my fundamentals are horrible. I don't eat vegetables. I'm out here eating like candy, you know?
Well, I think like all players benefit from it too, right? And that's why, I mean, it's called Judge's Tower because it was made to, I don't know if this is real or if this is just, the wives' tale of how this game came to be, but it was developed for judges to like test their abilities and test their knowledge and like better themselves, because when you're a judge and you approach a table, someone calls you over, you have to immediately look at a board state and be like, okay, there are like 40 different things going on here, and you have to immediately tap in and be like, okay, I'm understanding the current state of the board. What's the issue? The player has to tell you, and you have to immediately tap in and be like, okay, they've got these cards. Here's the scenario. Here's the part in their turn. Here's what's happening with, here's where the priority is. Here's what's going on in the stack. And it's like, this Judge's Tower was developed just purely to test judges' knowledge and capabilities.
Okay, interesting.
During a tournament or whatever. But now it can be played. It can be played by any player who wants to engage with Magic at that level and to kind of improve themselves, and also just goof around and be like, oh, I'm going to play. I've got in my main deck. I'm looking at my main deck here. I'm going to play this card that's literally called Fat Ass. It's from an unset. It's a 4 and a green for a 2, 3.5. So like you can play like Judge's Tower doesn't have to be serious. It can be silly. You can add silly stuff.
That's awesome.
I've got a booster tutor in here, which when you cast booster tutor, let me pull it up here. For 1 black, it's an instant. It's also another unset. You open a sealed Magic booster pack, reveal the cards, and put one of those cards into your hand. So like I'm gonna have whenever we play Judge's Tower, if someone casts a booster tutor, I'll just have packs on hand, and someone can look through it and be like, oh, this is the most deviant card from the pack. This is going into the Judge's Tower. You know what I mean? So like, Judge's Tower, it's obviously, it's serious. The rules are serious, but the game in and of itself can be fun. And we were laughing last night. We were having a blast.
We were having a blast. Yeah.
As like, it can be really frustrating when you cast a card and you have like 7 other things going on, and then you have to draw, 3 more cards. 3 more cards in Judge's Tower could be just game ending, because you could draw something good, you could draw something that just has ridiculous triggers that you have to worry about.
Like I drew a card that I just lost instantly. I was like, what the it was like one of those it was like a card because there's no mana, so like the card would be limited by like you only have a limited mana pool, so you can't infinitely cast this. But because there's no mana, I could infinitely cast, and I just lost on the spot.
Yeah, I included it's an enchantment called Song of Creation, which there's some cards in here that are like, and I limited these exponentially. I tried to remove most of these because there shouldn't be cards in here. At least I think my philosophy with this Judge's Tower is like, there shouldn't be cards in here that make you immediately lose or like combo off and put you in like an infinite loop and the game just stalls out. But I had to include Song of Creation because it's so Like it means something to me. It means something to our buddy Taylor, who plays the Epic Storm in Legacy. It's an enchantment. It's a 4-mana enchantment that allows you to play an additional land each turn, which doesn't matter in Judge's Tower because there aren't any lands. We'll get to the rules in a second here. But whenever you cast a spell, you draw 2 cards. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. So you can kind of see potentially the issue with Song of Creation is like in Judge's Tower, you cast a spell and we've got infinite mana. So like our mana pool never runs dry. So you cast a spell, you draw 2 cards. You have to immediately play both of those cards. You cast one, you draw 2 more cards. You cast one, you draw 2 more cards. So it's like
infinite.
And like I included that this is my one infinite, like you literally have to draw the entire deck and you have to like make it work, which is an impossibility, right? Like my Judge's Tower is 500 cards. We never play with 500 cards. Last night we just would grab a stack from my, deck box, I've got one of the like...
Yeah, we never get through 500 cards.
I have like a big game-genic dungeon that's like, I've got 500 cards in there. But it's just like one of those silly cards that I'm like, I have to put it in here because it's funny. It has like meaning to me and my friend who play Magic a lot. And it's hilarious. It's a hilarious addition to Judge's Tower. But let's talk about the rules of Judge's Tower real quick for those who haven't played. Obviously, we described kind of the gist of the game, but here's how you actually play Judge's Tower. So all players share the same library and graveyard, and you're considered the owner of all cards you draw, which matters. All players have 20 life, and then that resets at the end of each turn. So typically in each Judge's Tower game, you can play differently. Like, let's say you get hit for 20 damage and you die. Well, we could play a variation where, you actually lose the game because I was able to combat you out. But typically, the one way of losing is just a rules violation. So even if your life goes into the negative, we can play mode where it's like, your life dipped below 20 this turn, but it still resets next turn. So you're still in the game, even though you died technically.
Yeah.
All players have infinite mana. You only lose the game if you commit a rules violation. Everyone begins the game with 0 cards in hand. There's also a ruling where played amongst judges. If you're judge level 1, you start with 1 card in hand at the beginning of your turn. Let's say you're level 2, you start with 2 cards in hand. So it's just kind of like a fun.
Wait, what does that mean by level?
So there are like different levels of judge, I guess. I'm not super familiar with, the Judge Academy or whatever that.
There's a Judge Academy?
Yeah. And I guess lately, Wizards is like, they're distancing themselves from the Judges Academy and all this stuff. There's like some controversies going on. I don't really know all the politics of it. And
I had no idea this existed.
Yeah. Because I mean, it makes sense though, right? Like you have to have people who can judge a game of Magic at a tournament. If you've got
I literally thought the judges at tournaments, like when we were at Magic the Gathering Con, were just like people volunteering that are like, I played before. Like I'll chill out. I'll help settle disputes.
Yeah, well, and I think judge, again, that's where judge level comes into play because a lot of people can apply to be a judge. I'm sure it's like passing your driver's test a little bit. Like if you know Magic and you can demonstrate your ability to like really play Magic and understand the rules of Magic, you can become a level 1 judge.
Yeah, there are classes.
Yeah, there are classes. It's the whole thing because it makes
I had
sense.
No idea
because like Pro Tour, you're playing for thousands of dollars. Like that's real stuff. And like if there's a rules violation that happens, something comes up, you need to have an official, like any other sport. I mean, it's silly. It's silly to say, but like you need to have people officiating.
You need a ref.
Yeah. So yeah, there are judges and there are different level of judges based on like which limits obviously what types of events you're capable of judging. But so typically everyone starts with 0 cards in hand. So you just kick off the game, draw 1 card, play 1 card, and life goes on, right? You must activate every ability of each permanent you control at least once per turn as soon as legally possible. And that is key, as soon as legally possible.
Yeah.
So
I was dying to that a lot.
Yeah, and one of my, I actually bring up an example of that later when we look at some of the cards in the deck. But the example that came up last night has to do with regeneration. Like if when you can regenerate a card, you must, and you can do that during your upkeep. So there are a lot of triggers for activated abilities that just happen immediately during a game of Judge's Tower. So during each player's upkeep, if you can activate an activated ability, you have to activate it. And that kind of goes with like if there are May abilities, you must, right? Yeah, where is it? I just want to bring it. I might as well just bring it up right now, but it's Ghost
Yeah, let's
Ship.
see it.
So Luke drew a card called Ghost Ship, which for 2 blue you summon. I think it's technically a pirate now. It's a spirit. So you get a 2/4 spirit with flying, and then it has for blue, you regenerate Ghost Ship, and you have to activate that regeneration because how regeneration works is like the next time this creature would die, basically, it comes back to the battlefield tapped, and even though it's not in combat and you don't know if it potentially would die. Like typically with regeneration, you activate it when it's targeted with a destroy spell or in combat or whatever. Then that's when you would typically regenerate a creature. But in Judge's Tower, it's as soon as you legally can. So during your upkeep, you have to activate your regeneration, which sounds silly, but it's like it's that precise, right?
Yeah.
It's that precise in Judge's Tower. You have to do these things as soon as you physically can. Because it just shows, again, it's that kind of like next level of rules knowledge where it's like, yeah, I can legally do this action.
Yeah.
Understanding when you can do certain things. And there are a lot of cards in this deck where it's like, activate this only during your opponent's upkeep. Like another example I have is a card called Festival, which is a card I've always been fascinated by, but isn't typically, it's not a great card. It's an okay card, but it's on the chopping block right away when you're building a deck. The art is really, really cool. It's a Mark Poole piece from Back in the Dark, which is a set I really love. So another reason why I really love this card, but have never played it. So for 1 white, you get an instant where when you cast the spell, creatures can attack this turn, but you can only cast the spell during an opponent's upkeep. So that's why I included it in this Judge's Tower, because it's an instant speed card, but there's a restriction on when you can play it, right? So there are a lot of cards in this deck that care about when you're able to activate or when you're able to cast.
Yeah.
Going back to the rulings, if a spell or ability has a mana cost of X, X always has to equal 3. An example of that in my particular list is Immortal Servitude, which has an incredible, I actually have a foil version of this.
This looks so cool.
It's one of my favorite Seb McKinnon pieces, and it's on an okay card. It's not crazy, but it's
you play it for the
it's
art.
Cool. You play it for the art. But yeah, so it's X and then the hybrid Orzhov. So you got 3 Orzhov pips. So for X and Orzhov, it's a sorcery, and you return each creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you have to cast this with X, and the only targets in your graveyard are creatures with a mana cost of exactly X. It's not X or less. So it's another one of those like really picky rules things.
Interesting.
Yeah. And because this doesn't target, you can cast this with no targets in your graveyard. So if you don't cast this, it's technically a game loss because you still put the 3 mana into it. You just don't return any creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, these are all rules that I bet 90% of people didn't even think about.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. I'm trying to think. There's another like black card that, speaking of, like another part of Judge's Tower is like there are certain instances where cards will either screw you over or potentially benefit you or just not like impact you negatively, right? There's a card. Let me find it quick before we move forward. It's a draw spell. I'm pretty sure. Oh, we can actually, one of them that is coming to mind right away is Shamanic Revelation, which could either really impact you in the like kind of later turns of Judge's Tower, or if you cast this turn 1, Shamanic Revelation it's a 5 mana green sorcery. Draw a card for each creature you control. It also has Ferocious. You gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So you cast this turn 1, you just draw 0 cards. Your turn's done. So that's awesome. But let's say turn 2, we wield, you have 6 creatures on board. Cast Shamanic Revelation. Oh, I draw 6 cards.
Yeah. This is in green sleeves,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you're making a lot of creature tokens, so decent draw spell there. But yeah, so there's some cards in the Judge's Tower where like if you hit them at certain stages during a game of Judge's Tower, they impact your board state significantly differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you draw us at the wrong time, you're screwed. If you draw at the right time, no big deal.
And then the final key ruling of Judge's Tower is you must attack with all legal attackers and block with all legal blockers. So this is pretty integral to your combat step. Obviously, there are a lot of creatures with like tap activations, but there are also certain creatures in the list that just have haste, and it's easy to like cast a creature spell and just, again, talking about what we talked about earlier with the whole concept of like play land, cast a creature, go.
Yeah.
Well, play land, cast a creature, it has haste and an activated ability
So it
or
has
not.
to go
So it's
now.
like you have to attack, and if you miss that, it's a very simple, like haste is like one of the first things you learn when you're playing red in Magic, right?
Yeah.
But it's one thing that like you can forget about, or it's like, I missed the trigger there. It's like it has haste, it has an activated ability. I could have activated that during my turn,
Yeah.
or like I could have activated it during your turn or whatever. It's just one of those things that where I think Judge's Tower has the potential to like kind of elevate your ability when playing Magic.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, it's definitely like doing cardio. Hey, we can't lift all the time. Sometimes you gotta
Hit the treadmill.
run on the treadmill a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess this kind of ultimately brings me to the point of, but why? What's the point? What's the point in playing Judge's Tower? And I've been kind of, addressing that as we've gone along here. But it's fun. Like we've been saying, like we had a blast last night.
No, it was fun.
It's incredibly engaging. I made the note here that everyone's full attention during a Judge's Tower game is on Magic the Gathering. And that's one thing that like we all do this, right? We all, during a Commander game, we pass our turn and we get up to go grab a piece of pizza, or we get up to go grab a beer. We pull out our phone, we check, our mess texts or like what have you. Like it happens. Like that's, it's a casual format. Not everyone's as engaged in the game as others might be.
Yeah.
But with Judge's Tower, everyone has to play this game together. I think it's kind of unique to Judge's Tower as a casual format. Most casual formats, it's like casual.
Would you
multiplayer
consider this
formats.
was a casual format?
It's casual at its core because it's not like we're not playing for pennies here, right? So there's none of us have skin in the game,
Okay.
so to speak. Like there's not competitive Judge's Tower.
Yeah, I was curious. Yeah, is there like tournaments for Judge's Tower?
That'd be hilarious if there were. But yeah, no, the whole point is just to get together and try to either not necessarily trip people up, but like see if people are tripping up over their rules violations and being able to call them out. And there were so many moments last night where Taylor and I were just like laughing, and like, there was a couple triggers with our other buddy Johnny where like he had an enchantment, and like I was like about to say something. I look over at Taylor and he's like, he just kind of shook his head, and we both had this moment where like, oh, he's gonna miss this trigger type thing. We were really good though with especially Johnny.
You guys
and
were
Zach.
about to let this man fail.
We helped. It's
crazy.
It was our first inaugural game of Judge's Tower, and we were very like, teaching the format, learning the format, and just like we were very like accommodating to everyone's skill level. Taylor had a really, really good idea of having like kind of a tiered Judge's Tower where like the cards in the blue sleeves, that's the quote unquote intro beginner list.
Easy.
Then we have the moderate, and then we have the advanced list of all the like the super ridiculous cards that are going in this. Currently, I only have about 400 of my 500 cards in paper right now. I ordered another like 120 cards that are coming in.
That's great.
And those are all hand-picked, most deviant, crazy, weird, diabolical rules things.
Why would you do that?
They're so fun. There are also some that are like, they're not all of them are to that level, but some that are like, I consider kind of staples that I should have in the deck, like all the guild mages. Let's take a peek at one of the guild mages here. Yeah, Zamek guild mage. I was actually looking at this earlier.
He looks really cool too.
All of the guild mages are really, really great for Judge's Tower because they all have activated abilities that are just mana. So you don't have to tap them. They aren't like a once per turn cycle. They're once each turn. So like Zamek guild mage, I have to activate this not only in my upkeep, but I have to activate it in your upkeep, in Taylor's upkeep, in Johnny's upkeep, and like keep this going.
Wow.
And going back to the rules of like, you have to activate each ability once per turn, and you typically start at the bottom of the card. So for Zamek Guildmage, he's a 2-mana 2/2. His first ability, we're going to look at this top down. His first ability is for a green and a blue. This turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Its second ability is for a green and a blue. Remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control and draw a card. So typically you'd start at the bottom, but if you can't do the bottom one, you don't have to. So we would start at the bottom. If you can't activate it, you don't have to. If there's an illegal target, like if you don't have a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, you can't activate it, obviously. So then you go up to the first ability. So then this turn, the creatures enter with a +1/+1 counter on it. So if you don't have +1/+1 counters on it, this doesn't matter all that much during your opponent's turns because you're not going to be adding counters to stuff and you're not going to be drawing cards, but you still have to activate it.
Interesting.
So even though creatures more than likely aren't entering the battlefields on your turn, you still have to activate that first thing.
Yeah.
You can't activate the second one if you don't have +1/+1 counters. So like, let's say I pass turn with just the Zombek Guildmage on my battlefield. I cast it. There's nothing else on my battlefield. I pass turn. In your upkeep, I would have to activate its first ability. This turn, each creature I control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. During your turn, more than likely, creatures aren't entering the battlefield on my turn.
No.
There might be a card that gives me creature tokens or something. Who knows? But you still have to activate it. Even though it's probably nothing's going to happen. Creatures aren't going to hit your battlefield. You're not going to have to actually do it. You still have to activate it in that player's upkeep.
Interesting.
And all the guild mages are really good about this. Another one is the Azorius Guild Mage. There's one for each house, each guild. So this one's, it's a 2-mana 2/2. Most of the guild mages are. It's got 2 and a white, tap target creature, and 2 and a blue, counter target activated ability. This one is really, really funny because you activate, so you can't just counter a target activated ability if there isn't an activated ability on the stack, right? But, so you can't activate it the bottom ability.
Okay.
So then you go to the top one, tap target creature for 2 and a white. So you activate it targeting Azorius Guildmage because that's a legal target. Let's say there isn't another single other creature on board, you can still tap Azorius Guildmage. So you activate the first ability, but while that's on the stack, you activate its second ability to counter the first target ability, the first activated ability.
Wow.
It's so ridiculous, but this is a puzzle piece during Judge's Tower that answers itself. So this is actually kind of a non-threat. You just have to make sure you do both these abilities. So like in your upkeep, I'm going to activate Azorius Guildmage targeting itself, and then I will then activate its second ability to counter that targeted ability. Pass priority.
That's some lawyering right there. Wait, here's a question for you. Two questions for you. Number one, is Flash just not a thing in Judge's Tower because you have to play everything immediately?
It still
you'll never have anything in hand.
It still matters because people, like for example, there are cards that will more than likely force you to draw cards during your opponent's turn. So I think is it Deep Analysis? Yeah, Deep Analysis is a great example because Taylor actually did this last night, which ended up making Johnny lose. Because Deep Analysis for 3 and a blue, target player draws 2 cards.
Okay.
So you cast this, you're never going to target yourself. Typically, in any other format, you're more than likely going to target yourself to draw 2 cards because you're paying 4 mana. I want those cards. But in Judge's Tower, you cast it. You do not want cards in Judge's Tower. That's more stuff for you to fail on. So Deep Analysis is a good card. They're quote unquote cards you like and cards you want to see in Judge's Tower because you cast Deep Analysis. I'm going to give you 2 cards. And not only am I going to give you 2 cards, but Deep Analysis also has flashback. For 1 and a blue, pay 3 life. You flash it back from your graveyard, cast it, and then it enters exile. So I'll cast this. You're going to draw 2 cards. Then I'm going to flash it back. You're going to draw 2 more cards.
That's awful.
Yeah, pretty bad. And then, that's where flash comes into play. And there are a couple, here's...
It's like if you draw a card and it's got flash.
Yep, so Soaring Thought Thief is in this list. For a blue and a black, you get a 1/3 human rogue that has flash and flying. So this is a great example. In Deep Analysis, let's say you draw a Soaring Thought Thief. You're like, oh, it's a creature, so I'm not going to cast it. And if you pass priority, you lose because it's got flash. You had to cast that.
Interesting.
In response to that first Deep Analysis. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild.
Another question too. If you have a creature with vigilance and let's say you're okay, Leland, I'm attacking you, and you tap it, you do the tap motion even though it's vigilant, so it untaps. Vigilance says that It attacks without tapping.
Yeah.
So you lose.
Yep, you lose because it's got vigilance. You missed your vigilance.
So like if you tap it, even though you just do the motion of tapping, even though you know that like you're gonna.
Yeah, like well, yeah. Let's say I move to attacks and you tap your attacking creature, you lose. It has vigilance. It does not tap.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
you tap you can't just tap creatures just to tap creatures. They like
That means
there's a reason.
So there's like the physical.
It's an activation. You're activating that card for some reason, and sometimes you're activating the card to attack. Sometimes you're activating it to activate an ability, but you can't just tap stuff just to tap stuff.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's technically a game loss there.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of wild. So like there are a lot of again the whole point is to learn. That's my second point of like what's the point? It's to learn. Magic is an incredibly complex game. Tons of rules that feel overly complicated, which is what you dislike about Magic at times, is what I'm picking up here. But it allows you to like engage with those niche rulings. Also some simple rulings. Like I've got stuff in here like I think it's called Catacomb Slugs. It's just a vanilla creature. Like I've got stuff in this Judge's Tower. Yeah, it's a 5-mana 2/6. That's it. I have cards in here that are like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, I drew a Catacomb Slug. Cast my vanilla creature. That's my turn. Thank goodness. Like so, these are quote unquote good cards. Like Catacomb Slug, that's a bad card. That's a bad Magic card right there. I actually love this art by Nils Hamm, but that's an aside from the point that Catacomb Slug is a great card in Judge's Tower if you draw it. It's typically not a great card.
You're like, thank
in
God.
most other formats. Exactly. So yeah, the point's to learn. And yeah, I try to represent a bit of everything within my list. Obviously, most Judges Towers are going to lean into Graveyards Matter because think of it this way, like what are the two primary zones outside of obviously your battlefield are your library and your graveyard. So there has to be in a Judge's Tower, you need to like really care about stuff like flashback, stuff like dredge, cards that just you can cast them from your graveyard if you meet certain conditions. So there's a lot of I try to include a lot of that in my list. And a good like I'd say about 75% of my list is just cards I had in my collection. Like you can build a Judge's Tower, just go through your bulk, find stuff that has weird triggers, weird activated abilities.
And
stuff.
you never play out most of these cards in a deck. It's not good enough. But in Judge Towers is great.
Yeah. Another perfect example of that is a card called Firemane Angel, which is a 6-mana 4/3 angel with flying and first strike. It has these two like really strange abilities that are they're triggers that you have to care about. I just had this in my bulk bin, but it's got at the beginning of your upkeep, if Firemane Angel is in your graveyard or on the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. And then for 10 mana, you can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield, but you can only activate that during your upkeep.
Wow.
So it's like really weird
Very
niches.
specific.
It's very specific. The costing on this, the cost of this card is awful. That like weird return to the battlefield for 10 mana for 4/3 flying first strike is awful. Like this card is not good, but it's extremely interesting in Judge's Tower. So of course I had to throw it in. So yeah, I definitely recommend you everyone go through your bulk, even if it isn't obviously 500 cards is excessive. I did not need to make a 500 card Judge's Tower. It was just personally something I wanted to do. Put together a 100 card one. Put together 150 cards. That's perfect. That's the exact size you need. And it'll allow you to get like really familiar with that particular cycle of cards.
Yeah.
Just go through your bulk, find a bunch of stuff that has weird triggers that maybe you've missed in the past. Maybe they're things you haven't even encountered yet. They're just sitting in your bulk bin. You're like, I've never cast this. I've never seen this weird return to the battlefield from your graveyard. If you cast 2 instants this turn or, whatever the weird activated ability is, just throw it in a Judge's Tower and, play with your friend. And it's just a great way of learning Magic. And it's also, like we were just discussing, like we've discussed this whole time, it's a great way to like improve how you play the game.
Yeah.
Beyond just showing you the rules of Magic and learning about these different mechanics, it puts them in motion.
Yeah.
It puts them in motion in a way where like you'll start paying attention to these triggers and these activations and flashbacks and all these different mechanics that you might overlook or miss or whatever. You'll actually start paying attention to those during actual games of Magic. During actual games of Commander, you'll pay attention to the board state more. You'll be off your phone less. In theory, this is all just me being like, I just see a lot of value in casually playing a game or two of Judge's Tower at the beginning or end of any play session, regardless of format. Just grab 100 cards out of your Judge's Tower, grab 30 cards out of your Judge's Tower, and just throw it down with a friend. And I think you'll learn a lot. It'll improve your game, and it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah. Great warm up. Great way to learn, eat your vegetables, and you can play fun cards like Fat Ass.
Exactly.
That you never play otherwise.
But yeah, if you're interested in starting a Judge's Tower of your own or looking for a starting point, I highly recommend checking out this blog post by it's a blog called Outside the Asylum for a really in-depth analysis of the format. It offers fantastic insights into like the general philosophies of the format that we've been discussing today. And it highlights some like of the greater principles of what makes, a good Judge's Tower and what makes the format like fun and engaging and really fun to build too. Like I've had so much fun over the last, I think I started this deck like 8 months ago. Okay. Over the past 8 months, I haven't actively been mulling over Judge's Tower.
Yeah.
But I like find cards like Karlov Manor. I've got a bunch of Karlov Manor cards in here that, why not? Like, let's just throw them in. Like, I've got cases because cases are weird. It's a new weird card type. Like, let's throw it in the Judge's Tower. I've got this Fugitive Codebreaker. This is a new Karlov Manor card that I opened at pre-release, and it's like, oh, you have to cast it down for in disguise, and then you have to use the disguise cost right away, and you discard your hand, draw 3 cards. You don't want to see this card in your hand because it's like got a lot of weird things going on about it. So like, yeah. I don't know, having Judge's Tower, it makes you like look at cards that you're like, oh, this is unplayable in a completely different light. It's like, oh, this is fun, weird Magic. Like this is Magic the Gathering. This is like a weird, fun thing that's real in Magic that I might not play otherwise, but it's something that like I should at least think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, check out that article. I'll include it in the episode description to go check out. And then, I think a good way of maybe wrapping this up is just to look at a couple other cards within my personal list. I think, every list should be personalized. Put your pet cards in here. Put cards that you hate in here. Put cards you just straight up like never want to see ever in here. One of mine is, I think it's called Asmodeus the Archfiend, which I lost because of last night.
Really?
Because it's just this card is ridiculous. So Asmodeus the Archfiend for 4 black is a 6/6 Devil God. It's got Binding Contract. If you would draw a card, exile the top card of your library face down instead. For black, it has draw 7 cards, which that is awful in Judge's Tower. Yeah. And then for 1 black, return all cards exiled with Asmodeus the Archfiend to their owner's hand, and you lose that much life. So you cast Asmodeus. And you can layer this, like the triggers. You can start at the bottom, move your way up. You can, for 1 black, return all cards exiled with Asmodeus the Archfiend, even if there aren't any cards in exile. So you don't have to deal with Asmodeus on your first turn necessarily. But then you do have to draw 7 cards. And what Taylor and I were going back and forth on is like with each draw, it technically triggers the Binding Contract. So you move to draw one of those 7 cards and you put it in exile. Trigger. I was going to draw a card, so I put it in exile. Trigger. So these are 7 unique Binding Contract triggers on the stack. It's just ridiculous. Like this format just gets so ridiculous. And
yeah, that's some nightmare.
Yeah, this is a card you never want to see.
Devilish, if you will.
It's devilish. We'll just go over a couple more that I think are worth noting here. Speaking of cards you never want to see ever. Reforge the Soul. Typically, this is a card you always want to see when playing Magic the Gathering, right? Let me pull it up here. So Reforge the Soul is a 5-mana sorcery with Miracle, which if it's the first card you draw this turn, you can cast it for the Miracle cost instead. And it's a wheel effect. So each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. So for 2 mana, if you've got no cards in hand, you can wheel your opponents out and draw 7 cards. Like, this is an extremely good card for regular Magic. But for Judge's Tower, this means you cast this and you have to draw 7 cards.
Yeah, it's bad.
So it's just another really funny card that's like, typically this is good. You always want to see Reforge the Soul when you're playing other constructed formats. You never want to see this when you're playing Judge's Tower. It's like, oh, well, I got to draw 7, and I'm probably going to lose this turn.
I like that border on the card. I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's from the so Miracles. All Miracle cards have these kind of like cool little white lines coming off of them to kind of
I didn't know
signify
that.
that they're Miracle.
That's cool.
Yeah, I've got a couple other Miracles in here. I forget which ones, but I think there's a white one in here. But yeah, Miracle's an interesting thing because it's like I draw the card for turn, Miracle trigger. I drew it, I got to play it. It's like another one of those weird things that like typically you don't have to account for if you're planning on casting it anyways, because we have infinite mana in Judge's Tower. But just another thing for you to like think about. Yeah, Terminus is another Miracle. So typically it's a 6 mana sorcery. Put all creatures on the bottom of their owner's libraries, but it's got a Miracle cost of 1 white.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, and there are a couple board wipes in here to like, things are starting to get overwhelming. People can like draw into a Terminus. I have a Farewell in here, which is the dreaded card that Commander players hate. It's been the topic of contention for a while now in the Commander community.
Yeah, wait, why would you add that?
Because it resets. So typically this is bad because it resets a game of Commander and everyone hates that. But this is good because it resets a game of Judge's Tower. Like, let's say the board's getting crazy. Everyone's stressed out. Like, hey, I'm going to cast a Farewell. Forget about it. Forget about all these things. They're all in exile. They don't even hit the graveyard. They're gone. The graveyard's gone. It's all just like
never even existed.
Back to 1. Yeah, we're all good. We're all still in this. So this is a card that people resent in Commander, but people will be like, oh, thank goodness, in Judge's Tower.
Wow. Interesting.
But yeah, and then I think enchantments and artifacts are the bread and butter, so to speak.
Okay.
Of Judge's Tower, because they all of them that I chose, or most of them that I chose, have unique triggered abilities or activated abilities that are annoying to keep track of, right? A fun one from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It's a newer card. Contested Game Ball. It's a 2 mana artifact. Whenever you're dealt combat damage, the attacking player gains control of Contested Game Ball and untaps it. And then for 2 and tap, you draw a card and put a point counter on Contested Game Ball. Then if it has 5 or more point counters on it, sack it and create a treasure token.
Wow.
So it's a fun little... I really enjoyed this in the limited environment because it just obviously incentivizes the combat step, and the combat step is always really, really important in limited formats.
Yeah.
Limited draft formats. So... And it just adds like it adds like a mini game.
Yeah.
Essentially to a game of Judge's Tower. It's just one more thing to keep track of, and it's like a mini game.
Also, I recognize this game from Road to El Dorado.
Yeah. El Dorado.
The best. Yeah. Dude, we're gonna
10,000 years ago.
We're gonna like become like un-AdSensed because
we
sang the song.
I sang it too good. We're
Yeah.
gonna get copyright claim. But yeah, so that's an example of like a kind of a fun artifact. I've also got a bunch of like ridiculous artifacts in here. Like Sun Droplet. This is such an annoying card.
Wait, why?
It's a 2 mana artifact. Whenever you're dealt damage, put that many charge counters on Sun Droplet. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may remove a charge counter from Sun Droplet. If you do, you gain 1 life. So it's just one more thing you got to keep track of during every upkeep that deals with counters, deals with life gain. So stuff like that.
That's wild.
And then for enchantments, I've got some really good ones. The most ridiculous of which, and I think this is probably a good one to put a little cap on our Judge's Tower discussion, is called Tackle Maggot. And this is the one that I showed you and Taylor yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
This is the most ridiculous. It's the embodiment of what Judge's Tower is about, right? So Tackle Maggot is a 4 mana enchant creature. So it's an enchantment that's an aura from Legends. So like a lot of these old cards have ridiculous rulings. Taylor was like, oh, this is reminiscent of Chains of Mephistopheles, which is another crazy card that
Okay.
I don't even want to talk about because it's its rules text is equally
it's a book.
long. It's actually longer. I'm just gonna pull chains up for Luke to just see. Oh, and this is the eroded one. This is what it actually looked like on a. It's like,
Why though?
yeah, I mean, if it wasn't a $1,000 card, I'd include it in the Judge's Tower.
Hey, proxy.
I'm actually doing no proxies in the Judge's Tower.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's going to
Okay.
be all real Magic cards. But yeah, maybe one day when I'm a multi-millionaire,
Yeah.
we can get a Chains
When
of
I win the lottery.
Mephistopheles in the old deck. But yeah, right now, instead we have Tackle Maggot, which is an or enchantment. It's enchant creature. All right, everyone buckle in because there's a lot going on here. Well, actually, when you like get down to it, it isn't that complicated to understand. There are just way too many words on this card. Like you look at Tackle Maggot and you're like, F this, I'm out. I'm never playing this card.
We could have described this way easier. Like in a way easier.
Basically, yeah.
Very simply.
So yeah, the rules text on Tackle Maggot is the beginning of the upkeep of enchanted creature's controller. Put a -0/-1 counter on that creature. When an enchanted creature dies, that creature's controller chooses a creature that Tackle Maggot could enchant. If the player does, return Tackle Maggot to the battlefield under your control, attached to that creature. If they don't, return Tackle Maggot to the battlefield under your control as a non-aura enchantment. It loses enchant creature and gains at the beginning of that player's upkeep. Tackle Maggot deals 1 damage to that player. So it's an aura that
But why?
under certain conditions becomes not an aura. It just becomes a regular enchantment.
That's so convoluted.
Yeah, so this is going to be a card that like if you draw this card, you're just going to be like, yeah, I concede. I'm not playing Judge's Tower anymore.
Yikes.
So yeah, we got some ridiculous cards like the old Tackle Maggot in here. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm eager to play more. Judge's Tower. It was really fun to kind of kick it off yesterday with the inaugural couple games, and I'm eager to have all these cards come in, round off the true 500, have 500 cards in paper for this Judge's Tower, and see where it goes.
So when are you going to sign up to be a judge?
Probably never.
Probably never. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't play enough. I don't know. I don't play in enough events to like merit being a judge.
Okay.
I mean, I might do it just to say, yeah, I'm a judge. I'm a level 1 judge.
Yeah. Do you get like a
in
card
Magic.
or anything? Do you get like a?
Well, that's
Can you put it on like your Costco membership?
I'll put it on my
Leland,
resume.
Judge level 1.
Level 1 judge in Magic: The Gathering.
I love it.
Um,
But don't you love when you meet those people in public and like just like people where like they have like weird certifications in public, like, yeah, I'm a scuba diver pro,
yeah.
like level 5, and you're like, that's random. You live in Nevada.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe level 1 judge. I could just like have a card in my wallet.
Yeah.
In case there's like a medical emergency. I'll just, guys, don't worry. I'm a level 1 judge.
Yeah.
I'll be like,
Someone
oh,
gets
okay,
in a
he's
car
got it.
accident, you're like, don't worry, I got you. I'm a judge.
It's like, okay, what's the board state here? Let me know.
Yeah.
Give me a 3/3 beast creature token stat.
I'm here for it. I like it.
Judge's Tower. I highly encourage everyone to at least look into the format, look into lists. There's great gameplay. I highly recommend actually Quest for the Jank Lord, one of my favorite YouTube channels. They've got a Judge Tower series going on right now. That's fantastic. Definitely added a couple cards from their list. I think their list right now is about 200 cards. They've got a really fun list going. And each guest they bring on, they have them add 3 cards, which I think is really cool.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So whenever we have like someone like Zach last night, we have a buddy come hang out. We let them know, hey, got a Judge's Tower, bring 3 cards. We'll add them. So I really love that. And yeah, go check out their gameplay series. Those guys are awesome. I actually met them at MagicCon Chicago. Super nice guys. And their content is just next level good. So that's a really good resource for watching Judge's Tower to actually get a feel for how the gameplay looks, how it kind of goes down, what losing a game looks like. Like, you see them lose turn 1. I actually, last night, I lost immediately during
Love
one of
it.
our games. Like,
Love it.
it happens. Like, it's the whole point of playing Judge's Tower. And then, yeah, that's that blog article. I've got that's linked in the video description as well. So yeah, that's Judge's Tower. Let's send the episode off with a classic Scryfall random.
Let's do it.
All right, you got yours going?
I'm ready to rock.
All right, send it.
All right, so I got Fragmentado de Races, which looks like a sliver. I'm guessing this is a
Wait.
sliver.
Wait, what's the English one? What's the English one?
Wait. Oh, here, I'll put it in English. Yeah, what is it in English? Oh, okay, just root sliver.
Oh, it's one of the slivers.
I was like, this looks like a sliver,
That's
but
funny.
it's
So,
a
it was one of the Salvat's like I think it was in Italy. It was like a magazine that they had a bunch of like promos. So with each issue, you got like 10, 15 cards, and it was like, oh, to complete the full deck, look forward to the next issue.
Oh, that's
So
kind
if
of
you got every single issue in the Salvat, you eventually built a full deck.
That's kind of cool.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah,
That is really cool. But yeah, I got root sliver, and it says this spell can't be countered. Sliver spells can't be countered.
yeah. This
That's
is
really broken.
this is a messed up card in
I bet people
a sliver
hate
deck.
this card.
Oh yeah, people hate slivers.
What is a sliver? I've never gotten a straight answer on what it's like. Kind of a worm dragon, like.
So which one did I had? Like the sliver. No. So the sliver grave mother is the most recent sliver. I actually just pulled in my Time Spiral Remaster box. I pulled Sliver Legion, so this is like another staple sliver creature. So like the sliver archetype is like it's always 5 color because within each type, like within each color, there are slivers that do things.
Yeah.
But Sliver Legion is it's 5 colors, so it's white, blue, black, red, green. You get a 7/7 sliver. All sliver creatures get +1/+1 for each other sliver on the battlefield. And in slivers, you're only playing slivers. So it's like everything gets buffed up a mess. This is basically the crater hoof of slivers.
Yeah, but like, what is a sliver?
That is a great
like an
question.
alien.
I have no idea.
I don't know. It's like a little alien worm thing. Also, I like though that root sliver is mono green.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I gotta say. That's it. I like that about it.
Got that.
The rest of it, maybe not so much.
Yeah, they're currently just on Scryfall. There are currently 115 slivers.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's actually more than I was expecting. I knew there were a ton, but it's kind of cool. It like adds some variability because every single sliver, or I should say most, I shouldn't say every, but pretty much every single sliver has stuff that cares about other slivers. So like Blur Sliver, sliver creatures you control have haste. Bone Scythe Sliver, sliver creatures you control have double strike. It just keeps going on from there. Cloud Shredder Sliver, sliver creatures you control have flying and haste. Like they all just stack.
Yeah.
So you just play a sliver and it does everything for everything else you have on your board.
I want to do a 5-color night one night at our table where everyone brings a 5-color commander. Maybe I'll make a sliver.
Jacob actually has the sliver precon, so we'll have him.
Of course he does.
He'll be at the helm of that one. It's terrible.
Yeah.
He's played it a couple times.
But no, I'll make one from scratch. But no, I've already said this. My 5-color deck I want to make is Cody the Codex.
That is so funny to me because we just had this whole episode right about how you're a mono green player.
I know this is so against me.
And
I don't like
how
it.
you
I just
hate
like
Judge's Tower.
I hate Judge's Tower.
And you know me. I love combo. I love complicated Magic. I love like my whole thing in loving Magic is how crazy and complicated and convoluted this gets. I hate this card, Luke.
Yeah.
This is too much for me. I
It's
do
too much
not
for me,
like
too.
Cody Vociferous Codex.
I just like that it's like a book with an eye that's like animated.
And I think the thing that you may not understand is you can't cast permanent spells, Luke. You cannot cast a Birds of Paradise with Cody. You cannot. It's Cody and all sorceries and instants. That's on you. You did this to yourself. I would never build this because
I didn't realize that.
I hate this card.
I haven't even read it. I
This
don't even
card
know
is-
what it does.
I hate this card. But Luke, I think you're gonna hate this card more than me. So have fun building it. You've
Honestly,
already committed.
Didn't even read it.
You already see exactly spoken like a true green player.
Didn't even
You
read
looked
it.
at this. You're like, oh, well, it looks cool. It
That's-
looks great. It's 5-color. I'll make this one,
Yeah, that's 100% what happened.
and it's the most spell slinging deck you could possibly have in all 5 colors.
All right, we might have to rethink
But
this.
not only so, okay, what Cody does This is we'll get to my Scryfall
Yeah, can you
random.
explain me this? Because I don't
We'll get
understand.
to my
what it does.
Scryfall random. This is the bonus content at the end of this episode here.
Yeah.
Talking about my hate for Cody Vociferous Codex. All right. So it's a 3-mana legendary artifact creature construct. That's a 1/4. As for 4 mana, you tap to add Wooburg. When you cast your next spell this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile an instant or sorcerer card with lesser mana value. Until end of turn, you may cast that spell without paying its mana cost. Put each other card exiled this way at the bottom of your library in random order. So not only does this prevent you from doing artifacts, enchantments, creatures, but it also costs, like, it's an activated ability. I should add this to the Judge's Tower. Why not? This should go in the Judge's Tower. Like, this is a Judge's Tower card. But it's kind of like cascading. It's like a weird pseudo cascade into instants and sorceries that you just keep cycling through instants and sorceries.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, I agree. This is the one time I will agree with you that a spell slinging deck
Wait.
sounds awful.
This won't let me do any of the things I like to do in Magic.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wait a second. All right.
You could try it.
We might have to rethink this.
Yeah. Oh my
I literally
gosh.
did what you said. I just saw him like, dude, okay, it's 5 colors and it's hilarious. Its name is Cody the Codex and it's a little book. Like, I'm in. No thought past that went into this.
I didn't mean to pop off on Cody here, but I will say I've also, I think we all kind of, at one point in our Commander deck building careers, just like think a little bit about making a 5-color deck. And I think that's just natural. Everyone's like, oh, 5-color, whether it be a Kenrith 5-color good pile CDH deck, or in my case, a Child of Alara super control, play every single card that allows nobody to have fun at a table, or a Cody where it's just, why are we doing this? I think that's the issue with 5-color for me, is like, you're either on the Kenrith side where you're like, of course I'm going to play all of the best spells in Magic the Gathering. I think there's something cool about that, but you also hit this side where it's like, this is 5-color, and I guess the limitation of not having permanence, you need all 5 colors to be able to do anything at all. And there is some, like, it's fun because you obviously want to include a bunch of creature token generation, creating sorceries to like actually have a board state. I'm sure there are instances that give you clues and like card draw, and like there are ways of hitting all your key Commander, deck building, staples, all the different categories of building a deck, right?
Yeah.
There are ways to do that with Cody. You just have to do it in all these, I don't know.
You know what? Honestly, challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. I'm really excited to see what you
it.
come up with. I'm going to challenge you to actually come up with a list.
Yeah.
Maybe we talk about it on the podcast. Maybe we don't. Maybe we bury this into the
Maybe we
in
just
the
never speak of
backyard.
this again.
We put it in a box, bury it in the backyard. And
Okay,
Don't
I
talk
do
about
have a
it.
5-color commander. We'll talk about this in another episode, but I do have an actual 5-color commander that like I actually kind of want to make.
okay, yeah, we'll get into the
we'll get into that
we'll do a whole episode on what we end up doing, because I think I like your idea of a 5-color night.
I want a
And
5-color night.
I've already have one that I'm building because I'm building it in spite of 5-color, kind of like how I'm building Radagast in spite of green. I've got like a Child of Alara uber control deck where I just play all the most jank, weird spells from Magic's history. And it's really fun, but at the same time, it's a little Judge's Tower-y in that it's just a bunch of really weird triggers that inhibit actually playing Magic the Gathering. So
Wow.
it's a pretty jank, pseudo evil, weird deck. But
no, you've heard it here, show watchers. Cody the Codex, I'm making it.
yeah, we'll do a 5-color deck, 5-color Commander episode.
Perfect.
Put it on the books.
All right.
All right.
Let's hear yours. What's your random Scryfall of the day?
Yeah. So you had a sliver, right?
Yep. Root Sliver.
Root sliver.
In
I
Spanish.
have. Okay. We landed on a creature.
Okay.
Kind of an interesting one. I remember actually I pulled a Valduk back in Dominaria Remastered. It's like a classic mono red commander. But yeah, so I got Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. It's for 2 and a red, Get a 3/2 human shaman, legendary. So this can be your commander. At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste, and then you exile those tokens at the beginning of your next end step. So this is like it's a really fun commander to build. Actually, I don't know if I'd ever put this in paper, but it's a Voltron that also goes wide. So it's like an super aggro kind of Voltron list. This feels like something you might kind of dig on, honestly.
Yeah.
All looks pretty cool.
And he looks cool.
Yeah, and his flavor text is the hammer strikes, the flame awakens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I'd like to learn maybe his
Actually, yeah, we should probably build this.
his
too.
lore. His lore is probably pretty interesting. The Multiverse Legends art is really sick. Big fan of this by Tyler Crook. It's like a stained glass looking Dominaria style art. I dig it.
I like how he's got swords in this artwork, but then he has like a Thor's hammer in the other.
Yeah, it's interesting because he should have a hammer. I guess I don't know his lore, but his flavor text, the hammer strikes, the flame awakens. I mean, maybe this is him in his forge state where he's,
I definitely have like a soft spot for like cool looking warriors that have hammers.
Yeah,
So,
this could be your mono
Thor.
red deck. Who knows?
Yeah, this might be it.
He's pretty cool. I mean, and it also kind of goes to you like Voltron.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valduk. I think I'll keep him. So we got a sliver and a human shaman.
Both opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Wild Dogs Pod. Be sure to answer this week's community question in the episode description, which is, what do you think of Judge's Tower? Have you played Judge's Tower? Do you have a Judge's Tower? Please let us know. I'd love to hear what cards you'd recommend I add to our list. Just some interesting experiences you've had with Judge's Tower. Also, check out the link to my list below. I've added my Moxfield link to the Judge's Tower, so you can go in, check it out. Please leave comments there, too, on cards you think I should add.
Any recommendations?
Yeah, any recommendations, I'll take them. I'll consider them, and they might even make it into the list. As long as they're not $1,000 chains of Mephistopheles.
Yeah, we're going a dollar and lower. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the other great thing about Judge's Tower is like a lot of these cards are just super high costed, like really weird effects that are, whatever. So you can build a Judge's Tower for, like $50.
Oh yeah.
Tops. Just again, dig through your bulk bins at your local LGS, dig through your bulk, find cards that you think would work and just give it a go. Thank you for listening to the show. Connect with us through Twitter, Instagram at WildDogsPod, and over on Discord, which you're invited to in the episode description below. Finally, thanks to Johnny Bartlett for creating the intro and outro music. We've got a new version of I'm So Magic you're about to hear in a second here. So please check out the link to his SoundCloud in the episode description. Until next time, Wild Dogs out.
Thanks, everyone.
Magic the Gathering. Gathering magic with my friends. Playing cool cards all the time. Tutoring love for all men.